All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Tech Stack Playbook. We are back with another video. This was too cool to not make another video about, so I've been really loving n8n and being able to automate all of the different processes that I could think of. There was one template that really stuck out to me that I saw in the library, and it's on how to automate investments and finance tracking, and also like kind of for free, to be honest. Like, what's really cool about a lot of these automations is that you think about like how much time you spend going to these different websites, or maybe you might be paying premium prices for data or being able to listen to certain financial events. But what if you could be able to do that all for free, automated completely around the clock, and you never really have to think about it? So that's what we're going to be building today. We're using n8n, Baserow, Sendgrid, and of course a lot of really cool n8n integrations and nodes to pull financial data and create an investment report. So also one that could be emailed right to your inbox. I don't think it gets any easier than this, and I think this is really cool. So I think you're going to love this build and we're continuing this automation series, and I can't wait to show it to you. So if you're excited to see this, we're going to roll the video and let's see how to build something like this. So one of my absolute favorite features of n8n is their ability to use and reuse templates. And why I think this is so cool is because it's almost kind of like writing a language that then other people can take and interpret it, kind of like infrastructure as code language, but not as like need to be super developer focused to be able to use it. So somebody could make a template and then share that with somebody else, and then they can repurpose that whole workflow, literally every single step from cron operations to AI nodes, literally everything in between. You'd be able to repurpose what somebody else built, which makes it so cool to use what other people make that you might really want to take or adopt for your workplace, or maybe your own company, or maybe for your team. So I want to show you one of the templates that I think is really cool. So Tom is one of the creators that makes templates, and he published this 2 years ago. And what's really cool is it's all about tracking investments using Baserow and n8n. So this is just to give you a little bit of like a look into this. So which is like super high level. So I see that there's a cron operation, also an on-click execute. This will then use Baserow, and it looks like it's going to do something, with spreadsheets, which is talking about rows. It's going to fetch TradeGate stock data from TradeGate. It's going to parse that data. It's then going to format the result, calculate a change, and then build some HTML for us, and then send this to Sendgrid to send a mail message. So all of this is captured in this template. So I just want to go through some of the steps here, just so we can make sure that we all are on the same page. So in this workflow, there's a number of different technologies, and basically what we're going to be doing is tracking the value of ETFs, stocks, and other exchange-traded products using n8n. So we use Baserow to keep track of our investments. There's the cron node from n8n to trigger the workflow, compiling the daily morning briefing. Web scraping, which is going to basically allow us to do HTTP requests and use the HTML extract nodes to fetch up-to-date data prices from relevant stock exchanges and structure this information for us to use. And we'll also be using a little bit of code. So we'll use some JavaScript to use the function node to build a custom HTML body with all the relevant info that we would need to track this. And then we'll use Sendgrid to send an email. And Sendgrid is an email service provider that we'll be using to send out our mail message. So what's really cool is that the steps are easily followable. We can basically just take this template and implement that into our workspace, which we're going to do in a bit. And also talks about if you're not a Sendgrid user, you can just remove the Sendgrid node and add a Gmail node instead. But we can also set this up as well. And the stock exchange has a REST API. We can just throw away the HTML extract node. So super, super, super cool. So the data source. So our data source is Baserow, and in the table, we'll track the information needed for each investment product, and it'll look something like this. So there'll be the name of the asset, there'll be a count, which would be number of shares owned, the ISIN identifier, and then the purchase price. So then there's two columns, the name and the ISIN, as well as two number type columns, which is count and purchase price. So that's where we talked about this earlier, but we have this cron job. We then, or a click operation. This will go to Baserow, fetch trade stock data. This will parse that stock data. This will then format the result, calculate the change, and build HTML and send the email along. So then how this is basically working is we have this cron job, and that's going to basically run each workday in the morning hours. That's important because you only want this to run during trading hours. Also, with Baserow, the Baserow node will fetch the investments from the database table shown above, and then the HTTP response or HTTP request will use the HTTP request node to then fetch live data from the stock exchange, basically for anything that we want, based on the ISIN that we list in the database. So the example uses TradeGate, which is used by different fintech, firms or VCs or hedge funds. But basically, you could use any way that you can track data that you want, and the basic approach should also work for any other exchange as long as they require, and give data to the public. So we'll then extract our HTML from the HTTP request node. So that requests full websites. And then we'll use this extract node to extract only the information that we want from each website. And if an exchange other than TradeGate is used, the sectors used will most likely need to be updated or changed to reflect where that data is being parsed from the website. Next, we'll use a set node. And if you remember from my other video before, we used actually a set node to manipulate some of the text so that we could change basically inputs going into our AI model. But here the set node helps us with setting the exact columns we'll use in the table. So we're first formatting the results from the exchange and then calculating the changes based on the purchase price. So that's where the set node comes in. And then in terms of our function, we're going to use a bit of JavaScript code to build the HTML email, and any changes to the email content would be made here. Then we'll use Sendgrid to send out the email built in the previous step, and this is where you can configure the sender and the recipients. And then the result is the basic email that's generated by this workflow would look something like this. So it'll tell you investments as of this date, and then it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different columns. And it'll go through the name of the asset, the ISIN, the count, the number of shares, the purchase price, the current value, the change, and the percent change over time, all with a total of the amount that the assets are collectively worth. So let's see how easily it is for us to just add this to our workspace. So I already have an account set up with n8n here. We'll use this workflow, so we'll click here. We'll then have this easy import templates into my TechStack Playbook Cloud workspace. We'll click that. And then boom, now we're able to start building our workflow. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in our credentials, and these are going to be important for us to work with these technologies that we list. So in my previous video, we specifically were using AWS credentials, and we were also using the Slack API credentials as well. But here we're going to use two different types of credentials, Baserow and Sendgrid. So to set up a Baserow account, we can simply just press Start Now. It's free. So we can set up with our email and password. So I'll set that up now. So we'll get started. Let's get that for now. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to have name. So that'll be name there. We'll have count. And we see that this is a number. So we'll say number. Yep, and we only want whole numbers, so we'll say count. We'll then do ISIN, and ISIN is text. And then purchase price is a number. and we want to be able to have 2 decimals there, so we'll do create. Cool. So now what we do is we can check a number of different stocks. So I'm just going to say, I'm actually going to ask ChatGPT to give me a list of 3 random stocks. Okay, so Apple, Microsoft, and Google. Cool. All right, so let's see if this works. So I'll give that a save. So now we'll need to get our credential. So if we go to settings and we want to get a database token, so we haven't created any tokens yet, so we can create a token and we're going to call this n8n and probably give the date. So 11/2024 for November. And this for the workspace, say create token. And as permissions to all children, and that'll be good. So then we will create token with all those permissions. And then we will copy this token there. Go back to n8n, and then we'll create a. Okay, so we could actually log in with username, password. So instead of using the API token, we can just log in with this. So I'm going to pass in my username credentials. Give that a save. It's going to check. And the credential is private only to you. So that's saved. Awesome. Now we will create Sendgrid. So we'll do a Sendgrid credential. We'll go back to the template. Open up Sendgrid here. Start for free. And then we will. So now that our account's all set, we'll press continue. So now that we've verified our account, we'll then go back to, or be redirected back to Sendgrid. And can we just get started? Facebook.com, and then okay, cool. So now that we have this, we are going to now go back to our workflow where we need an API key. So we're going to go to our account and we're going to see if we can get an API key. So we'll go to API keys under settings, create an API key. We then are going to do full access and we're going to call this n8n and we'll say November 2024. So create and view. We'll copy this. We'll save this to our local. And then we're going to take this back to our workflow. We're going to paste this in. We're going to press save. And that was saved successfully. And the connection was tested successfully. The connection was tested successfully and it worked. So that's great. So we're going to go back. And now what we can do is we can press continue. And now we'll be able to set up our workflow. So now we have this all in our workspace with all of the executions and it'll be ready to rock. And now let's do a speed run of what this workflow will do. So this is going to run a cron operation, and let's just ask ChatGPT, what does this cron expression mean? So it'll run at 7:15 a.m. Monday through Saturday, every month and every day of the month. So that's what that is doing with this. And this is just a cron expression, meaning that this will just run and be activated and run all around the clock. We don't even need to, have it run or anything, but we can also basically get this execution to run on click. Now this is going to get to our base row, and the database name or ID, we would need to change this because 146 is not supported in the database name or ID. So we would need to integrate that, but then we'll get data from TradeGate, and that's where we'll get all of the stock information related to our database. We'll then parse our stock data here with some code that Tom has very nicely added to us with some CSS selector. There's the ISIN. This will then look through some JavaScript and go through all the different components of it. This is basically parsing all that data we get out. We can then format that with our JSON example. So this is from each node, and then we'll pull out each item. So the name, the ISIN, the count, the purchase price, all of that. And then we're going to do some calculation here. We're going to build some HTML. So we're taking the columns, and then we're basically making this table. So that's what it looks like over here. When we send this email, it's basically creating this email with the table here. So all this code is there. It looks really nice, and it's formatted as JSON for HTML. And then we use Sendgrid. So Sendgrid will be able to send the email out to sender email, but we could send this out from anybody else that we want. And then the recipient would be that. So all of that in the span of just a couple minutes. So because we are connected to Baserow, we're going to switch out our database name ID, and we're going to switch this to investments because that's the investment table that we already set up. And that's in here under investments. Close that out. And then the table name or ID under investments is investments. So then we limit 50. We'll give this a save. And then everything else looks to be in order. Also something that we'll do is we'll change out the email. So the email here for the sender will be my own email, and then the name will be my name, and then the recipient email will also be my email as well. Subject is investment reports. We'll give this a save. And then we can start running this. And we need to make this active. So we will click activate at the top. And then the workflow is now activated. So now we'll be able to get these investment reports set up every day, which will be great. So I just realized we will need to put these numbers in here. So let's look at, I need the ISIN of these 3 stocks you shared above. So let's see if we can get them. Sweet. Okay, cool. So we got that. We'll throw that into Apple. We'll get this for Microsoft. And then we'll get this for Google. And I think we'll actually need to use their real names. And we'll just say that we have 10, 20, 30. And let's say that the price is just the price that it is currently. Okay, cool. So we'll give that a save. Now we will try to go back to this, and I did try to execute this, but that was before I had all that data. So now let's try to run this again. Sweet. Okay, so now it is pulling all that data in there. If we try to go to the next one, go to the next step. Okay, cool. So it is getting the bid and the ask price for these, which is good. So now if we go to the next step, all right, so it is getting some data there. If we do this test step, this is going to compile all of this. Cool. We'll build the HTML. And then to send this, we will actually need to set this up for our credential. So we will try to go back to here. And let's make sure that we're able to actually use this correctly. All right, so now that we're back in Sendgrid, we're going to need to create a sender identity. And what the sender identity is going to do is going to allow us to verify that we can send emails from a specific email address. So we're going to create a sender identity in the flow, and we're going to say from name, say tech stack playbook. And once all of our information is in, we'll press create. And now we're going to send an email to our email. We need to verify this. So I just got an email from Sendgrid, and I'm going to verify that I am the single sender. I get this message that says that I am a verified sender. Now I can return to single sender verification. And now I can send emails from this specific email. So that's going to be great, because now if we go back to here to our track investments, we'll be able to continue along here. So now if we test this step, we'll be able to send a message, and we'll check our email, and we'll see if we got it. So it looks like we got it. So pretty cool. So I'll show you what this looks like in this window. So we were able to now get a message, and we're able to see that. So it just sent from Sendgrid. We're able to now see that this is this. Obviously, this is going to need more formatting, and this is going to need a lot more, basically, fine tuning. But we're able to now send emails and get information about all of the stocks in our portfolio, which is pretty cool. All right, so I thought that build was absolutely epic. What we were able to do was completely automate the way to create an investment report, and this all completely without needing to buy any sort of like expensive financial data or any sort of expensive automation processing. We're able to use n8n to get and extract data publicly about certain finances. We're able to use Baserow to track our investments. We're able to then use Sendgrid to send an email to us. And we were also able to set up a cron job where we're able to automate this whole process around the clock, so we don't need to think about it twice or once, really at all. This is all going to happen in an automated way. So really, really cool way to show how to send emails to yourself and automate the process of tracking investments, because we're all really busy and we all have empires to build, right? So we don't have time to be going online and checking the price of X or Y or Z. So I hope that this video and tutorial and build was really helpful for you. I'm going to drop the template in the comments below, and be sure to follow along to this tutorial so that you can go and build it too. But with that, I hope this video is really helpful for you on your building journey, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks everybody. Bye.